Hello, my name is Jeff St. Laurent, and I help coaches transition to a full-time business. And I've got one right here that I've worked with who I'm just going to introduce in a second. So excited. I put all of these shows and I've got a ton of great resources to help you transition to full-time on my website, sellingcoaching.com. Check out my university. I've got over 400 videos, got a ton of stuff. My only mission is to see you succeed in whichever way I can. If you want to start right off on the homepage, you can enter your name and email. You can become part of my community. I also got a great resource there as an audio resource called Launching Your Full-Time Coaching Business, the First 3 Vital Steps. Now, I want to introduce my awesome client, Melissa Scialfa. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
I know, right? It's so funny because Melissa's in the background and she's waiting. She's like, all right, are we going to do this? We're going to do this. And so excited to have you, Melissa. So we started off, it's midway through the year, and we started off last year at the end of the year. And we worked a full 6 months together. And essentially at that point, would you say you were basically starting from scratch? Where would you say you were at with your business?
Oh, yeah, definitely scratch. I don't want to put a ton of bad energetics on it, but I might have even been like right before scratch.
I like before scratch, right? So give us let's start us off there, right? Because I want to walk people through, because people listening to this, right, like they're either in their business, they're starting their business off, right? And I like to get real behind the scenes as much as we can, so people can really start to feel like, what is it like to actually start and launch a coaching business?
Yeah.
And so take us to that spot where tell people, like, where were you at? What were you feeling like that ultimately brought you to me and wanted you to start this work, just so people get a feel for like where you were at and how you felt.
Okay. I have a background of about 25 years in big corporate as an exec in human resources and technology, and went through my thing, which I'm sure we're going to get to later, but had kind of a midlife crisis at the time, and took some time out from corporate and decided that I was going to follow some coaching. It had always been in me, and I wanted to just streamline and focus on that. So I went to school at IPEC. And as I graduated last October 2024, I thought, well, I've been in business for 25 years. Let's just go. And little did I know that it was great that I learned all these amazing, world-class coaching skills. And I was missing some how-to skills with my own business. Particularly, I think what led me to you was, in my industry, it had been relatively small. So I was always on a referral basis, and I always had a captive audience, right? So everything I had to say was like meaningful already to the audience. I didn't have to build that meaning. And so all of a sudden I had all this great coaching stuff, but all that other stuff was missing, and I didn't know how to generate it. And so, you start to tap into everything, you watch everything on YouTube or social media, and I was just like, I don't know how to do this. I can't just put I can't just put a post out there and expect them to come. Like, build it, they will come. So I met you through the business development piece in IPEC, and then started reaching out, and we connected.
Yes. So there we were starting off. And I remember from our first, like, even before you hired me, like a complimentary session, we worked there. I was like, share with me your story, right? And that's where I was really impressed, because you got vulnerable with me.
Yeah.
And you went there. And then the next several months, really, probably at least a couple months, right, was really about finding your message and becoming comfortable with your story and how that led to what you were doing as a coach.
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk us through, like, as much as you're willing to go, not the actual story necessarily, right, but like the work, a lot of the internal work that we did, so that after, I'm just saying, a couple months, right? It could have been 3 or ish. It's not like nothing else was being done, but I feel that was a really big portion. And I know a lot of other coaches that I worked with, that's a big portion, is really their core message.
Yeah.
Just talk us through kind of like what you went through, the iterations, how you connected it to who you are as a person.
Yeah. Thank you for that opening. If when there are new coaches listening to this who are in that same stage, I think it's one of the hardest things for me to understand and learn was to go from this conversation where I thought we were going to have a this is what you do message, and I was just going to go execute like a project plan. I'd have been consultant most of my life, so I was just like looking for this um, consultancy mentorship, right? Um, and you had me tell you my personal story, and I was just like, I remember like fighting it. I watched that video so many times, and I just getting to that point, I was just fighting it. And you just sat there and were patient. And finally, I just opened up and said my story. And I think the realization that came from that was I wasn't implementing a business with a structure of how to, right? It really needed to come from what interested me, what did I learn about myself, and what could I bring forward to connect with other people. I didn't have to be the expert. I didn't have to be, you want to coach a CEO, you don't have to know their industry to coach them on how to be a CEO. You had to coach them on who they were being to be the CEO. And I think when I came to you, I was ready to coach on how to do it. And I had to figure out who I was being, right? I had to learn that story. I had to learn what I connected with myself. It's like I went through life having all these amazing experiences, and I have had a full life, right? And all sorts of varieties of it. But learning how to be comfortable with that, to talk about it or even accept it, to use it as usable stories and ways to connect with clients was really critical and so hard because, it might have led with shame or fear or guilt or, I experienced burnout like so many people in today's world. And I had this tape in my head that, oh, I'm going to learn something new and go be great at it. But I still had this thing in my head of a little bit of shame of why I burn out. And so until I could really reconnect with that as a story, I was having trouble, figuring out what I wanted to coach on and who I was talking to, right? Because I was dancing around it.
It's acceptance of it too, right? The
Yeah.
acceptance of your story, acceptance of who you are and what you've been through. Like you said, if there's shame, there's guilt around it. It's a lack of acceptance for what it is.
Yeah.
How did you get there? Like, how did you? That's probably like it's a big question, right? But like, what do
Question.
you feel? What do you feel finally allowed you to settle into some place? Right? You still settle as we go along, but what
Mhm.
allowed you to feel like I've got something? Because I remember like there was a couple calls where you're like, you read you read it to me and you sent it to me and you're like, I got it. And so yes, it's a process, right? It's not just like, oh, I wake up one day, but how do you
Yeah.
feel you got to a place of maybe accepting it and feeling like energetic, like you're energetically behind it now?
That's the word. It was like the lesson learned there was self leadership isn't a skill set. It wasn't really a skill set I was trying to get. It was an energetic presence I had to land in. Right. It was like this way to influence myself and show up every day as a coach wasn't a list. It wasn't a technology. It was right. It wasn't the how to of the business. It was like who I was being. And until I stopped forcing, the concept of that niche drama. I literally was like a junior in high school with you, like trying to figure out my major. And
Good
I
way to
was
put
freaking
it.
out. And I was like, I coach this to help them with this so I was like, give me the fill in the blank, and I was squeezing it. And it's funny because I look back at those messages now and it's the same thing. I landed in the same place. It's the same words,
Same
right? I
words, yeah.
know exactly who I coach, but I couldn't, I was like forcing it. It was like I wanted to memorize it. I wanted a script. I wanted that confidence that I I knew who I was talking to, even though I think there was something inside that it was that whole personal story. I want to tie it back to that. Um, I I couldn't identify her. I couldn't really put a, a story to where I was okay saying, this is who I am, right? This is what I was feeling. And it was like, that was getting in the way to say, listen, women out there who are my age and going through this, I know what you're feeling, right? So I had to kind of go through it and feel it. And there's something about the force piece. And, you would give me things to do, and I'd be like, yeah, 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 I'll do them. Like an email list. Yeah, 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 I'll do them. But I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it because I had some hang up about, oh my God, I get so many emails and I hate them, and I know how it might have made me feel when people didn't like my email at work, or someone commented about the way I communicated when I was in burnout because I was like forcing. And so I just avoided all of it. I kept avoiding it. And then I'd go back to the library. I'd go back to my office and I'd rework, with my chat GPT, 400,000 different versions of who my dream client is, what my message is, how my offer is going to sound, what my web page should look like, because I felt like that was helping me get structure. But really, all it was doing was helping me kind of contemplate who I was being, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it was the inner work you were doing all along the way.
Well, the whole time.
Yeah, so that's a real. I really want to highlight that for everybody because there are a lot of coaches who come into this business, and some are like, we're always doing internal work. I don't think that really ever stops, right? But for the sake of conversation, they're at a place where the majority, if not all of that internal work to that point in their life is good. They'll have stuff to do later on, but and they're just it's all application.
Yeah,
And then there's coaches who come in who want all application, but in the application, it's like 20% coaching business application and 80% really internal work.
absolutely.
And that's
80% technology, 20% skill.
that's exactly it, right? So you're kind of doing this stuff, but it's more of like you're going through the motions of it and you're getting stuff done. Like you got stuff done. But a lot of our calls came back and it was just like, oh boy, what I'm learning about myself and the acceptance of it all and the way you explain that. So every reiteration of your message and who you're working with, your ideal client, right? If we, like you said it really well. It's all the same thing said a different way,
Yeah.
or the same thing said a bunch of different ways,
Yeah.
but it's how you viewed it and accepted and felt as you explained it.
Yeah, for sure. Failing forward was a really scary thing that I understood so much. I understood intellectually. Like, I have an amazing experience. I had an amazing career. I showed up with a brain full of stuff, but my brain and my heart or my gut or wherever you want to call this part were not in alignment, and so when you try to think your way through things, this piece, this intuitive, the very core of what helps me connect to every client or every person in my life, that intuition was getting like shoved down because I was like going to think my way through it, right? And that takes coaching, because you can't sit behind the screen and figure that out. You just can't, because you'll torture yourself and there's no check. Except I have to tell you, the one time that we finally got me to, okay, I'm going to do the darn masterclass. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the masterclass. I didn't have like a topic. I didn't have my coaching niche statement, but I was going to go out and do it. It turns out that the very message, when I listened to that replay, the very message that I ended up falling into talking about is exactly this. It's who you're being while you're doing the doing that matters. And I was like, that's what I'm here to coach. That's what I had to figure out, right? And what were the energetics involved in there? And then you can, then you can add all the coaching skills in there that you learned on how to manage that and help people identify and talk to them about it. But that was a lot of the work. And if you don't give yourself space for that, and grace and compassion for
Mm.
that, man, it can be a dark place. It can be a dark place, because then you're like, I'm behind. I'm this. I'm that. And you're out of alignment.
Out of alignment. But you got in alignment.
Yes.
And that's where, so now that was a lot of the work initially was internal work that you were doing, the 80%, the coaching, the acceptance of your message and what it was and who you were and what you were living, and then also there's a 20% of like application stuff, and then it started to shift a little bit, right? So then if we'll just say the first 6 months it was the 80-20, and then slowly over the next 3 months it was kind of like, okay, still a lot of personal development, it's still right, yet the work was, now you're like, now you're doing a lot of stuff. You went to a big event where you filmed yourself speaking your message like live for the first time on camera,
Yeah.
because that was a big thing. And then getting your masterclass ready, promoting it, doing the webinar first, then promoting the masterclass, putting that all together. And that's a lot for a coach when it's, now I'm gonna sell something, even if it's free, a free webinar. I'm gonna put something out there and invite people to it. People that in your corporate space that know, like, trust you, that have influence with and over. Talk us through some of the details of that.
There's something about finding your voice. I mean, they don't teach you that in coach school. They teach you how to walk the walk, but finding you're not going to find your voice behind the screen practicing on paper. You have to get out there and practice your voice, right? You have to. I showed up on a few like guest panels. I did an IPEC. I raised my hand as one of the audience members and got on and did like some of the stuff on one of the IPEC webinars for, new coaches. And I just started to feel my answer and get comfortable. And it was like building that confidence that I had this voice, because in corporate, especially in the roles I was in, you don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. You better bring massive value in the sense that you better teach people you're the expert, and there's all this pressure. And not that I don't want to over deliver and bring to my clients, but they know best, right? And so you're the guide. And without that confidence, it's very hard to show up. So until you start to practice that and get out there, you don't know what's in your way, right? One thing that you just triggered was when I did my master class. It was so much fun. I mean, terror getting up there. I was terrified, but I did it. And I've been speaking in front of people all my life, right? But it was terrifying. I did it. But when I rewatched that, it was like, oh, remember I got back on with you and I was like, I feel like that might have been more for me than anybody else, that first one, to say, not only could I do it, but I heard my message. I heard the things I liked. I stayed curious because I had done all this work that I wasn't like judging myself. I stayed out of perfection, and then you know what else I saw? I saw an adult woman who has done a lot of really cool stuff show up and do this. And then I was like, oh, okay. All right. I'll start sending emails, I'll take a risk. Remember, I started like it opened up doors. It made it so like I could start contacting people and having conversations. So it really, it's a process. It's a process to build your, you know what it is, Jeff? It's it's like the first big goal that you want out of your coaching business. That's it. Oh my God, I'm so excited. So when I started with you, I just wanted to be a coach and start my business. So I wanted it all, right? And so we're working on all these things. But in my mind, you might have been taking me through like a kind of the challenge du jour. But my end game was all the things: good marketing, good sales, good conversations, good assets, good podcasts, good clients, good offers, good on-stage presence, right? That's a lot. And it was like, until I heard that masterclass and we did a lot of work, it was like not the someday goal. It's like I brought in the reality of my what's next goal. I didn't necessarily know the how. I think once you know the how of something, it no longer is a goal, it's action. So it was like the goal of, what do I want next? That's a challenge and scary, so it's worth doing, but is achievable, and I can focus on the one thing. And I think when that happened, then we could be like, here's the few things, right? Because before I was like, I'm not going live until I have all the things. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
the take. I mean, that is like if someone had just told me, but you
But
can't.
so
No,
that's the
no,
thing. But the thing about what you just said is that we could tell you, I could have told you,
you probably
but
did.
what you learned in the process of doing by doing was all that.
Yes,
And that's
absolutely.
it. And that's why there's so much like, there's always a respect for going through it. But like you said, behind the scenes, you can get somewhere, but you can't get to where you want to go until you go outside of that. And that's that masterclass. You promoted it. You got some people on there, and oh my God, you were scared. And like, remember that night before, and like you were up, and then you like even I forget the super
Don't give it
details,
all away. Don't give it all
but
away.
that's behind the scenes, right? And like going a lot. But that's why I want that people, if they listen to it, right? It's just like
Yeah.
the webinars in 30 minutes, and you were like trying to figure out stuff,
I
even though you
was,
had really figured it out.
yeah,
If you had it, and the thing is, if you had another day or another 2 days or another 2 weeks,
I would have taken it.
you would have taken it,
I
and
would
you
have taken
still would have been there 30 minutes prior to doing the same stuff.
it. And I could tell you that while we were going through the who I was being for the first couple months before I refused to do that masterclass, that the first part of our coaching, and I really hope people hear this and give themselves the grace for this. This is just not that is not just it's not unique to me, right? It's not unique to this problem of starting coaching. It is unique to starting something new. And especially our age group of person is that we have been taught one way of thinking. You have to show up as the expert. You have to be all things to all people at all times. I love that statement.
Yeah.
This is kind of like my dream client base. And you got to go out there and like over deliver. And over delivering means like controlling it. And that's going to be anything in your life, whether you're dealing with weight loss, relationships, parenting, empty nesting, building a coaching business, coaching any of those things, right? It applies to everything. So there's like so many inner blocks that you have to consider yourself and then apply them. And I don't mean like you have to get over every inner block. That's a block in itself, right? Because then you're sitting in judgment. But just build the awareness and being like accountable for it and saying, I'm going to fail for it. I'm going to try. I'm going to trust. Until you do that, you'll always have that gap, right?
Yeah. So then from there, right? So big learning with that masterclass that you did.
Yeah.
And from there, now you're like starting to call people.
Yes.
Now you're starting to like, all right, make some of the lists. I'm making a list. I'm calling some of my contacts. I'm making appointments. I have, more of the, what I call that phase one marketing is interacting, conversations with people, expanding my network, talking about your business. So give us some of the details around like, what does that start to look like?
Yes.
So people know like, all right, so now you're there. I'm calling people. What am I saying? Like talk us through that a little bit.
Also, not a natural thing to do, right? Some people
Yeah.
might just be naturally like they're going to call people. But if you've gone through anything and you're dealing with that inner conflict of what the heck you're doing, I was terrified of LinkedIn. I didn't know the difference between being vulnerable and
Mhm.
having like my transparency in my conversation, and then being authentic. Like to me that there was an elusive line. So I was terrified of
Mhm.
LinkedIn. I have 1,300 amazing first line contacts there. And I'm telling anyone who ever listens to this, I refused to reach out to them. I wouldn't post there. I was like, you don't understand. They've seen me fail. No one's going to understand, right? It was like a huge thing. And so then I did this masterclass and I'm feeling good, but I'm still terrified. And then I just started reaching out. I reached out to the safe people, like the people who liked me. And it turns out that a lot of what I remember is in my head, right? It's like how you remember it, but everybody's got a life. Nobody's judging you for whatever happened. And so I started like posting just authentic concepts of like, this is how I felt and this is where I end up and this is how I got there. And people are like, oh my God, me too.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? It wasn't like, yeah, I watched her do that. You know, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It was like, so I'm saying this not to like sit in my own stuff, but I think there's a lot of people out there that want to start a business that want to mask all that. And it is that very piece that makes you more approachable, that people see the transformation in you or they've had experience with you in the past and they're like, whoa, you just like quantum leaped. I need some of that. I need some of that. Right.
Yeah.
And so having these phone calls, I crashed and burned some of them. You know, I had a great phone call and they're like, so how do I work with you? And I'm like, well, let me send you something that I don't have, you know, and then I crashed and burned. But eventually you practice and there's amazing people out there that they want, they want, they trust you. They want to learn from you. They want your help. They want your insight, even if it's just a conversation or a group or another master class or, you know, one-on-one coaching, whatever it is. But when you let go of the that fear piece, I don't know, you have a lot to offer.
Yeah. Everything you just talked about, you can't know unless you do.
You're right.
So if anyone's rewinding this, right, it's just like I could have told you all that, you could have read all that, you could have watched it in a video, and you probably did 100 times.
Yeah.
But now the way you talk about it, that learning is emotional. It's not logical, because logical would be like, oh, I read this and that makes sense. Jeff said this and that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, you did it, and now I feel it and I understand it. That's it. That's how you grow in this business. And it's really
Exactly.
cool, Melissa, because everything you say is a lot of people, like, you come into this space and you could be like, and you have been and are a powerful executive who, I mean, phenomenal career. And you can
Yeah.
go back to that world anytime you want,
Yeah.
right? And earn fantastic money and be up there and do fantastic things. Yet you come into this space and all of a sudden everything is challenged,
Yeah.
and everything, self-esteem, worth, message, is this good enough, am I good enough, and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And the journey really of the 6 months, at least the first 6 months, is a lot of it's foundational, but from the internal space, but then now get external to start to do the work. And that's all the learnings you just shared right there.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It takes the time. Trust that everyone was like, oh, it takes time. I'm like, it doesn't take time. No, I'm going to be different. It takes time. And you have to build that in. You have to build that in and trust that
Yep.
because it is the feeling. Remember the heart and the head? Once they start going like this, then you're like, oh, and the only way you do that is to get in it and feel it.
Yes. So tell everyone where you're at right now, because we're going to be having another conversation a year or so down the road. And so when the then and now is will be the then,
Yeah.
or then will be the then. Anyways, tell everyone where you're at right now in your business in terms of what you're doing on a daily basis, just to pull this together, just so they get an idea of like, okay, here's Melissa's snapshot of my week.
Yeah. So I actually am talking to people. I have a calendar where I'm not just sitting in my day doing content. I have like, I'm applying to podcast. I'm talking, this is spent with people I know. This is spent with my second level people. I have reached out to a lot of my first line contacts where whether they're a dream client or important differentiation. Thank you, Jeff. They could be amazing and be a great lead into, we could have shared like client bases, right? Where we offset and help each other. So I'm reaching out to them. I'm actually launching 2 cohorts in September to do a 12 segment intensive on energy leadership and kind of your self leadership. And then I started because, one thing at a time is not really enough. I started to do some executive teaming things where we help new leaders who are coming into new big roles like a CHRO, who are picking their team, helping them define what that team looks like, and then building like a little segment where we bring their team, so they're actually bringing their team energetically aligned so that they can hit the ground in that 30, 60, 90 day more effectively. So that's what I'm launching those things in September, and it feels exciting. And does it feel exciting that I know how to say it? Heck yeah. And I really wanted to swear, but I'm not. Did it take me 5 months to figure that out? Yeah, I didn't start there, right? I really didn't. And nobody knew that but me. Nobody knew that I was trying to put myself into a recipe that maybe didn't excite me. And maybe that's what I was fighting. Who knows what I was fighting? But you have to get out there and start to talk, because until you talk, there's no energy interchanged. It's you and ChatGPT or you and whatever's happening. And there's no energy in exchange. So you're not learning anything about yourself. You're just not learning anything about yourself. Entrepreneurship's not meant to be alone. And any coach should have a coach, period. Like, if anybody wants to work with me, that's the first thing I say is I have coaches. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, and also the time thing too. Like when you're in your first 5 months and it's taking you 5 months, that's all of the time,
yeah,
right? But then you're in your first 7 months or your first year, and now
yeah,
all of a sudden it's 50% of your time. And then you're 5 years in, or 10 years in, or 20 years in, and then it took you 5 months. It's not really a big deal, is it?
no,
Right?
not
But
at
that
all.
laid the foundation for everything else to go. And for you
Yeah,
to be able to say, I'm launching these 2 cohorts in September, I'm doing this, you know,
I
like
know.
that's where it all is. And then it's just a matter of time,
Yeah,
repetition over time for things to unfold. And now a year later, you've got business, you're getting paid, you're doing well, you feel strong, you have systems, you have processes.
right.
That's it. It's
It's
not.
go time.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's not like a restaurant or a face-to-face business where you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and opening the storefront, and now you got to, it's 5 years before you're even cash positive, maybe.
Right. Right.
Yes, we spend money, right? We invest in things, but it's minuscule and compared to something else.
Yeah.
So
100%.
to wrap this up, just tell us, like, your website, how can people get a hold of you, join your cohort, join your community, so they can just become a part of, so they can check out what you're doing, because
I love that. I
it's
would.
so good, like what you're doing. And you know this because I tell you this all the time, but I mean it. Is like what you do is so powerful, and it's only because it's not just your message. It's only because you've accepted who you are, and the
Yeah.
work that and the things that you've been through personally and professionally. Big points there. um, and you just show up so raw and authentically now. People deserve to understand that and be part of it, because that's how they'll realize it
Thank
for
you for
themselves.
that. Yeah, so it's like come co-create with me. So in the spirit of not wasting any more time in the library, I don't have a website yet, but it's in
Right.
progress because I'm getting someone else to help me do it. But I can be reached at melissascalfa.com. I'm sorry, Melissa at melissascalfa.com email. And I have a masterclass. I got a little highlights reel so I can, if anybody's interested, we can send that out. I can put it in your show notes or whatever, below when you send out the replay. But I would love to just book a call. I think that's the best way for me right now is just to book a call and just it's Melissa at melissascalfa.com.
And I'll put that in the
And
comments. I'll put that in the
I
comments too.
love that. I
Yeah.
think that's the easiest way. We just book a 30-minute call, and I call it your bold next move. Like it is, whether you end up working with me or not, it is going to be transformational because I hold space. We think about like what's going on and where your energy is being leaked, and what's a priority, and why haven't you changed it yet? And then we figure out how to change it, and it's brilliant. So I would love to talk to anybody who wants to talk and join me on this journey of my group stuff in September. It'll be a lot of fun, a lot of powerhouses, group intention. It's very powerful.
Big time. Melissa, thank you for this. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for your trust in me, with the work we've done so far. I say so far because there's always more at some point down the road. But everything you've come to the table with, you've showed up, you did the work, and week in and week out, like you showed up vulnerable. And like that was the most powerful thing of it all. And that's I believe how we got to where we got to so far, is because you really weren't afraid to just be like, here's where I'm at, and it's awesome. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.